Hi and welcome to today's product keynote. It's spring here in Switzerland, and that's the perfect time to talk about the number of product updates that we recently shipped. We're going to talk about Search, the brand assistant. Then we have a special guest from Jung von Matt showing their recently released app. And then third, we're going to talk about innovation at Frontify, including automations, predictive metadata, and a lot of other cool stuff. But before we dive in, let's quickly recap on the highlights since the last keynote. Always a special moment to see those things out of the door after months and months of work. Really, really cool.
Yes, super exciting to see the direction the product has been taking over the last couple months.
And one of the areas that you've been working on a lot is search. Search has been around for a while, standard part of the product. But still we doubled down on it. We started to invest even more. And why now? Why more?
Yeah, I think there's sort of two things that come together at the moment. On the one hand, we have more and more content we're dealing with, right? Both human and now also AI generated. And no one has time to curate all of that content. And I think in 2025, they also shouldn't have to. And there's really where search is adding value by helping users find what they're looking for without all of that manual creation overhead. And the way that helps our customers is by allowing them to reuse a lot of the content that they already have rather than producing more and more stuff that just sort of seems to go into that black hole where no one can ever find it again.
And one of the keywords that we heard often and one of the main additions to the search is natural language search. Why is this so helpful to customers?
Yeah, so I think with recent technological advancements, right, we've had a bit of a shift in user expectations. And when we interact with systems, we sort of just expect those systems to understand us. And natural language search is really key here. So with that, users will no longer need to think about the exact keywords, the exact taxonomy to use to find something. They just describe what they're looking for and find it because the search is intelligent enough. And so that works well for things like picking up moods on assets. So if you're looking for something that's joyful to illustrate maybe a presentation, that's now a lot easier to find rather than, finding specific subjects. Or in the guidelines, you can now find everything that's related to a certain topic, even if maybe the terminology is not so consistent or you might not be familiar with some technical terms.
Also good for people who cannot remember the exact term anymore.
Exactly.
The ones with the bad memory like myself.
Yes.
So really nice. And another thing that we heard quite often is a thing called cross-guideline search. Not the most intuitive thing in the beginning, but still such an important feature. Why is that so important for the customers?
One of the cool things about our product is obviously that we support this multi-portal setup. So we have customers that maybe have their brand guidelines, a design system, a campaign toolkit. And with cross-guideline search, we now allow users to search across that entire brand universe, no matter where they are. And this has really impacted the search metrics quite a bit. So we've seen about a 6% drop in zero result searches across customers, a 4% improvement of search conversions. So yeah, it's really been a great step in the right direction.
Yeah, especially helpful if you have like a complex brand architecture.
Yeah.
So connected to the search, we also have talked about the introduction of the brand assistant in the last keynote, and we've learned from the feedback of our customers not only what they're excited about, but also challenges, why AI is not always the best option in certain cases, but when it's also really, really helpful. So you've spent a lot of time talking to the customers and gathering all of their insights. So can you give a glimpse into the examples that you've seen which are actually providing a lot of value?
Yeah, sure. I think over the past 6 months, we've really seen, these assistants and AI in general moving from just helping you retrieve information to actually help you get your job done. And there are a few areas we're really excited about. One of them is campaign toolkits. So we have customers who have these really fast-paced campaign toolkits that they manage on Frontify, right? And we think about how can we help them interact with those better and get their job done. And so you might see examples like the brand assistant help you create a brief for your agency based on your company's specific briefing structure and the content of the campaign. You might see local teams brainstorming with the brand assistant how to localize their content based on frameworks in the campaign. And then even further downstream, you might see people finding assets that go well with a caption they've already written and then touching up or adjusting those assets, cropping them so that they can go directly onto whatever channel where they want to post, right? And I think that really encapsulates where we see the brand assistant going, which is, not just retrieval of information, but really help you get your work done. And that's something I'm really excited about.
And I think a lot of our customers are also sometimes a bit overwhelmed by the opportunities and the options you have out there. It's an area where we want to be also a guiding light, to help our customers find their way through a jungle of AI tools and find the right use cases. And I think the work that you're doing with being very close to the customers and listening, what works, what doesn't work, helps not only them, but also all of our other customers to get better. So what do you think is next for the brand assistant? What are you focusing on?
One thing we're excited about is bringing the brand assistant to more places across your account, right? Currently, it's available in your guidelines, but imagine how powerful it could be if it were available everywhere. For example, in your templates, while you're writing, it might check the copy against your writing rules and your tone of voice. That could be pretty cool, no? And the other thing is giving the brand assistant more tools to get stuff done. So you might want to create an image based on a conversation you're having. You might want to integrate external tools for the brand assistant to orchestrate it. So that's really going to be the shift, to have the brand assistant really as a reliable companion to help you get your work done.
Definitely not short on ideas. Thank you very much, Dominic, for sharing. And now let's move on to the next part. We did a short trip over to Hamburg to visit our good friends over at Jung von Matt to talk about their recent release of an app on top of Frontify. And you guessed it, it's also about AI. Jung von Matt is one of the most creative agencies in the global landscape. Founded in Germany 33 years ago, they remain one of only 2 independent agencies still operating there. In the field of generative AI applications for marketing, Jung von Matt has established itself as a trusted advisor for some of the world's leading brands. They were also among the first agencies to develop their own brand AI model. To get started, why do we need another app to generate images? Why did you do that?
Now, we believe in 3 things that are very important when it comes to generative AI. First is safety. We developed JVM Stables. We're hosting it on premises. It's 100% GDPR compliant. Secondly, accessibility. So by implementing in such a wonderful brand management software like Frontify, we can make it accessible to a much broader range of clients. And lastly, accuracy. It's about really representing 100% geometrically correct product images that we generate, and we can assure that with our app.
You put a lot of emphasis on making sure that the products are accurate. and that also you have like certain guardrails around what kind of angles can you use in the product, what kind of environments are things put into, and what did trigger kind of this approach from your customers? Why did you go into that direction?
When it comes to brand, you want to have consistency, 100% brand consistency. And with generative AI, we can train the model to actually represent exactly that when it comes to angles of the product, color scheme, and so on. On the other hand, you want to have variety, right? That's one of the assets. You can generate infinite numbers of imagery depending on the need. So whether you want to have a certain, size of the image or you want to have a certain environment. And we want to balance this out by really giving clear guardrails to actually have the consistency of the brand, but also the best possible, so to say, creative variability in the product.
Creative freedom in that sense.
Yeah.
So oftentimes the challenge is like how many real use cases are actually being implemented with those. You shared with us a use case from Hyundai, and maybe you can give us a glimpse of like how it worked in practice to apply your technology.
Yeah, I mean, we're so happily to be working for Hyundai for a few years right now. So there's a lot of trust in that relationship. And on the other hand, there's a lot of curiosity and the will to invest in new technology on the Hyundai side, right? That's part of their brand. So they gave us lots of freedom, and we had also lots of resources at that time. So we invested a lot in training this low-range adaptation model to really be able to prompt a 100% accurate Santa Fe Hyundai product shot. But it was really about trial and error at that time. And I have to say, we had some blood sweating nights, obviously. It was so groundbreaking that we could actually prompt a car that many people like in the Reddit forum said, it's not prompted, it's just like a 3D in front of a 2D imagery, but that wasn't the case. At that point, we felt we had something that's of value, right? So it is really important for brands to train a model with your current data or even with product data that isn't on the web yet, and to reproduce this with a high accuracy.
Looking into the app, so how can customers actually use this app?
You just open the app and then you can decide for either like a pre-produced product. We have 3 different products in there to play around with. And then you decide for a certain image size and ratio. And then you can just either use a pre-prompt for the environment or you can manipulate it with free prompting.
If I like what I see and I've played around with all of that all demo material, how would the process look like if someone wants to get their own products trained and their own environments trained?
If you like what you see, please contact us. You can do that just, with the add imagery button, and we'll gladly get back to you in a short amount of time, because we will then have to get into the process of what are your decisive needs as a brand. So do you have like certain amount of images? If you have a large amount of imagery already, it's much easier to train a model. If you have certain, rules for accuracy, we need to talk about that.
What do you think is the next thing that you're going to build?
So we have like 1,000 ideas, obviously a big backlog. So one dimension is definitely going to be like always to deliver the most up-to-date technology when it comes to image generation. So we're going to look into constantly improving the quality, but we're also looking for inventing more features. Like, for example, we could imagine really using part of your imagery, as a cropped version of the product, and then position it and scale it on the image that you want to prompt, so that we can deliver the perfect asset for your need, whether it be, you need some space for some font, or you want to have it an ad, you want to put a button on that. And we're so curious on the first feedbacks from actual users that are using the app, and we'll then kind of adapt accordingly.
Really cool. Thank you so much for sharing, and really curious to see what people build with it. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for having us, and it's great to be part of the Frontify family.
That was actually a fun trip, and I also had the chance to go to the OMR quickly and talk to some customers and partners about AI and the tools and everything. And it made it even more clear that our role as an orchestrator and the guiding light in the whole transformation is super important. And we've always seen it as super important for us to be close to the workflows of the customers, really understand them, to provide value. And then also, more importantly, provide an open ecosystem to extend the platform and make it theirs. And one thing that we talked about last year was the SDK and the apps that we've launched. What was the development in that area? What has changed?
I think one of the most recent developments that I'm personally super excited about is that we're thinking about new surfaces where apps can plug into the Frontify ecosystem. So think about when you create an asset or when you want to modify them, you can just call an app. When you're in your guidelines, there are app options. When you're in your CMS and maybe you want to pull an asset from Frontify and it's not available in the digital asset management, there might be an app that helps you to generate assets on the fly that are on brand. And I think this is super powerful for our partners and for us to bring basically AI capabilities where and when needed to our customers.
One of the apps that we've shown last time was the batch creative apps. Really well received, I've heard.
Yeah.
Can you give us an idea how this worked together with the partners? What kind of feedback? What has been built? Where are we in the journey with apps?
Yeah, that was one of the best-selling apps. Not that we sell them, but
it's just there.
Exactly, and it's an app that helps you to create various assets, hundreds and thousands of assets based on a template in the data source. And in the past, you had to manually match the fields from the template and the data source, and we received tremendous feedback. We improved that with AI basically, and now there is a functionality that lets you auto match that. So apart from the process already being anyway super fast now, it's really cool to see customer using it, giving us feedback, and us being able to lift it to the next level even.
And we teased another big thing that we think is going to change the game, which is automation. And what are the updates with automation? Where are we with automations?
Yeah, first of all, maybe a quick recap. So for the ones that haven't watched the last keynote, automations are basically a very easy way to simplify your processes and to streamline them. So you have a trigger and you have actions. And the trigger could be an asset is being uploaded, but we give you very fine granular control. So it could also be only triggered if a specific file extension is there or if there is a specific word in the name of the asset. And then actions can be anything natively within Frontify. So creating metadata, creating descriptions, and this is the very powerful way also triggering apps that do then an action and bring it back into Frontify. For example, triggering OpenAI, analyzing an image and bringing back description.
With image descriptions and metadata, there's been a super interesting project and co-creation with a customer of ours to actually predict metadata. How does this work?
The customer of ours told us that they have a problem of thousands of different assets, and metadata is super relevant still because it helps people to leverage assets to the max, to find them. You have seen it in Dominic's part, to use natural language when you search for an asset. But it's also a cumbersome process. And maintaining that is really a lot of work. Modern language models have become super powerful. They can actually truly understand the context of an image and create descriptions that are way better. But the next level is basically when you have specific business logic or you have a specific additional instruction that you want to give a model. And with the latest development around agents and stuff, you can basically give that to a tool and a response comes back that is highly personalized for your business case. And this makes it truly powerful.
What I really liked about the predictive metadata is that you can actually, instead of just generating descriptions and some kind of definition, you can come up with your own structure as you have it currently in the library, and it just fits, and it's filled out the way you intend it to be. What's next? What's coming up in the ecosystem with apps and everything?
The exciting part is when everything comes together. So we have all the automation, we have all the apps, and an output of one app could be the input of another one. And I think this is when it becomes truly powerful. So think about brand guardianship use cases, tone of voice checkers, apps that can help them librarians to augment their use case. And I think what we just need to have is use cases that our customers want to test and to bring to Frontify. Reach out to us, stay tuned by checking out our website. And we can then see what we can bring to the platform together.
Cool. Thank you so much for sharing, Michael.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, that was already nearly it, but not quite. So the last bit is about more exciting things that are coming up. With that, I leave you. I hope you enjoyed the session with all the updates. Until next time.